20th century collection. And I've actually written 30 plays. And why did I stay in one act form? Well, originally I wanted to be a television writer. So a 20-minute one act play is a half-hour series, and a 42-minute one act play is an hour drama.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's kind of what the deal is. So unfortunately, I found writing in that form also becomes kind of a trap.
How
because
so?
you get so used to a singular idea. You've got to take one idea over that 30 minutes, maybe two ideas over 42 minutes, and resolve it and have all the conflict you want and everything. But it's not like a novel or a novella where you can have lots of ideas in there. And the idea was I wanted to write for television. I grew up with Rod Serling and Outer Limits and those kinds of things, and I wanted to write good, weird stories. And all the plays I have written have interesting, juicy twists. And if you know anything about like Twilight Zone, that type of thing, these plays read like Twilight Zone or Amazing Stories. And the stuff I write now is even, in some aspects, even more like that. But that's where the playwrights came from. What I used to do is write like an 800 or 1,000 word outline, and then break it up, sit there and break it up, take a pencil and break it up into what I thought was scenes, and then write my one act play, and then write the dialogue. And people tell me I'm a master at dialogue. And so
I would agree with that.
I've always worked out very well with that. So that's what I've been doing. And then I moved into more prose writing. The day I got retired was an involuntary retirement from Lockheed. Okay? You're retired today. Pack your bags.
What a bummer. Not even time to plan the vacation.
Well, no. It was weird because they were going down the hall, the 45-year guys first and project managers and things like that. And then they hit the 40-year people and the 35-year people. And I was in the 30, 35 range. And they said, we're rifting people out. You guys cost too much. Bye. So not knowing what to do with myself, I sat down the next day with a big spiral notebook and wrote what I thought was just going to be a short story, 5,000 words or something like this. And I didn't stop for 9 months. And the next thing I knew, I had almost 70,000 words, and I had my first novel. Now, I had already been published as a mystery writer. I've got several mysteries that are published out there that are part of compilations, and I had very good reviews on that stuff. So this was one of those things where a friend of mine dared me to write a science fiction story, and that was out of my bailiwick. But I knew the rule. I had a list of what the rules were of a science fiction story, so I said, okay, fine, I'll try this. And I was just starting out to write like a short story, science fiction short story. Well, old habits die hard. I dropped 2 bodies on the first page, and they were out there making love in the desert, and they never saw the heat-seeking missile that fell from the sky on top of them.
Oh, good heavens!
But the whole story was built around remote viewing and psychics, 80 years in the future. Okay, it's called Quiet Heads. And the idea is that the psychic industry in the 2080s is kind of like our big high-tech age was back in the late 80s, early 90s. The big IBM, Microsoft, that kind of thing. And they found out that psychic phenomena was real, it was verifiable, and it was profitable. So they had big companies that were into the psychic business and into remote viewing professionally, and one of them was called Theodyne. And they recruit people. The problem is that at that time, too many people have chips in their heads and plugged into 50 different kinds of social media, and those people are referred to as chatterheads. It's the people to walk around constantly with their phone in their hand right now. That's what those people become. And they have to go to places like Amish villages and retro communities. And this particular heroine in my story, Bernadette, grew up in a steampunk community. And was living in a retro 1940s community when they recruited her. And because these people are lucky to have a telephone party line, let alone chips in their heads, so they're quiet heads.
Oh my gosh, that is just so cool. Now,
And
I
we're getting
have,
ready to publish it.
I can't wait. You're going to have to give me a heads up if you would, please, because I'll be keeping an
I
eye
will.
out.
I will. I will. What else
And
would you like to know?
well, I was just told that um, UFO sighting stats really, really well per state, and I was like, I know, but this is so cool. And I want to talk about some more of your topics that you wrote, and I told you that I was going to ask about this one. You wrote that it's the 37th parallel, the UFO superhighway, and I found that interesting because like 3 days ago, Kismet, right? I was reading an article that said, are there UFO superhighways? Do UFOs follow paths? Do they go to the same place all the time? Do they, I'm shifting gears on you in the middle of things. I'm sorry. But I wanted to know about this because I'm so fascinated by the possibility. Do ley lines guide them? Is like the pyramids and Stonehenge and all these places that follow the same ley lines, were these places that have like an electromagnetic field that pulls these things along? And am I driving you crazy?
Okay, let me.
How much time? We got to take a break in 4 minutes, and then we'll have another 15.
We'll bait the audience with this.
Okay.
First thing. One of the things I discovered was that when I first did the work with the data from in 2015 that was going to lead to the book when we did New York State, I went to my editor and I showed him what the counts were in all the counties in New York State, and he said, "I want you to look for pollution. I want you to look for population. I want you to look for military bases." And he went down. He says, lines of latitude, ley lines. I don't care. I want you to look for all of it. See if there's a correlation.
Okay.
And we couldn't find one.
Not at all?
No, wait a minute.
That's so disappointing.
But we did.
Okay.
But not an initial pass. Now, Tom Conwell's got all the answers on that stuff. He knows it much better than I do. But one of the things we discovered, I reached out to Ben Moss. He was the chief investigator for MUFON in Virginia. And I called Ben up one day and I said, "Ben, help. Nothing's correlating." And he said, "Can you get an ancient map of Native American territories in New York State?" And I said, "Yeah, I should be able to locate that." So I reached out to local historical societies. Somebody scanned something and sent it over to me. And we overlaid it over our hot spots in New York, and it synced right up. Okay. Now, some months later, it took about 8 months, I got connected up with a guy he's in Connecticut, who was an expert on ley lines. And I asked him if he could send me something I could overlay over my map that showed me the ley lines in New York as he understood them. And everybody told me this is the go-to guy. And I can't remember his name to save my life. So he did. And what was interesting, we have a streak of like triangle UFOs flow right along the New York State Thruway, central New York. By God, there's a ley line runs right along there. 3 or 4 ley lines terminate in Syracuse. We're in upstate New York. We're one of the Onondaga County is one of the highest counties for sightings. It's in the top 10 in New York State.
Wow.
And also terminate in places like Rochester and Buffalo.
Right.
And Buffalo had the Lake Erie effect, and Rochester, nobody knew. Monroe County has almost as many sightings as the Lake Erie area. In fact, the New York State investigators said to me, "My God, we knew there was a Lake Erie effect. We didn't know there was a Lake Ontario effect." So yeah, there's something to the ley line things. Now, in regard to the 37th parallel, Linda and I were deep in our book, working on the book when that book came out. Okay, so we really didn't have time, but we both said, well, that's an interesting notion. But what we were already seeing in the data we had late spread out on our sewing tables was maybe not. Okay, so when the 2018 data came out, I got a hold of it
Mm-hmm.
and I processed it separately. And I added it was like 6,900 records, and we added lat longitude information to it. Okay,
Okay.
and we did a crunch on it, and there are at least 10 other latitudes that have in North America, they have far more sightings than does the 37th. Now, I've had my share of people come back to me and say, well, yeah, but, the 37's got a consistent. No, they don't. I
Right.
did a printout of all the counties from East Coast to West Coast, and it was onesie twosies, and the majority of the numbers cropped up because the line went through a couple of major cities, and we always get lots of sightings at major
Right.
cities.
Yeah, because
When I
people
went up
are out.
when I went to the 40th parallel and I printed out the counties, I had big numbers all the way across, consistent rumble of numbers going all the way across. So if there's a super highway, it's got to be the 40th or 42nd parallel where it is. I'm not saying which one it really is. I'm not sure yet. We're adding lat longitude to the entire 146,800 sightings master database, and when we're done, we're going to be able to give a definitive answer.
Oh my gosh, and at that point, we're taking a break. We'll be
Okay.
right back. This is so fascinating to me. I love ley lines. So, y'all, we will be back. This is 2 minutes, and you don't want to miss this final segment.
You are listening to WPHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. And we're back. I am Kat Hobson with Cheryl Costa here on Fate Mag Radio, and we're discussing UFO superhighways. Are there some? And Cheryl, this is just, I told you when we were talking during the break that I very, very rarely ask a question that I'm not pretty certain I know the answer to. You blew me out of the water.
Right.
I love that. And I do not miss Dr. J's show very often, so I hate that I missed hearing that interview where you were asked that last week. So this was totally new to me.
Well, what's funny?
And Dr. J, you're welcome for that plug. So there you go.
I had a wonderful time on a show the other night, so it's super interesting. But the deal is with this parallel thing, we didn't when Linda and I were working on the book, I kind of half knew